It's the 22nd of June and almost 6 p.m. here in the UK, and that can mean only one thing. Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference Keynote is about to start. Now, I'm interested in watching this not from the point of view of being an Apple fanboy, which I'm not, but I co-own a business that specialises in web and app development, so we are interested in Apple's Developer Conference. But for the purpose of my channel, I'm also interested to see whether Apple are going to release any new hardware this year. Last year at the conference, we got the new Mac Pro and the Pro Display XDR. But of course, the year before that, there weren't any new hardware releases. So Apple don't always release new hardware. I'm kind of expecting that they might release a new iMac this year. But beyond that, I don't really have any firm ideas about what's coming. So I thought it'd be interesting to watch the keynote live with my good friend and business partner, Pete, who joins us today.
Hi Dave, nice to be with you.
Great to have you on the channel and at an acceptable social distance as well.
Absolutely.
And I also need to give a big shout out as well to another one of my friends, also called Pete, just to confuse things, who's twiddling the knobs and making things happen for our broadcast today. Now we're not doing this as a live stream because it occurred to me that if you want to watch Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference keynote, you're probably going to do it on Apple's website, not on some small British YouTube tech channel. So I thought what we'd do instead is record it live, and then we'll edit it immediately after the keynote's finished, chop out all of Apple's fluff pieces that are not relevant, and just focus in on the gear that we're interested in, and we'll put that straight up onto YouTube. So if you're watching this now, that's what we've done. I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so that's the end of the keynote. It's been a long session for us. We've been here for sort of 2.5 hours now. And a lot to digest, I think it's fair to say, Pete.
Monster amount to digest for sure.
So some massive news. Let's come to that at the end. Let's just a quick recap of the few things that we picked out from here. So the messaging app on your iPhone now has group messaging. Thoughts, Pete?
WhatsApp's already done it, and you don't need an iPhone in order to be able to do it. So I'm sure it'll be very good, but it's a little bit, limited. If you haven't got everyone that you want in your group on an iPhone, how much use is it?
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think a lot of people are just going to go straight back to WhatsApp. I don't feel it's very inclusive either. Unless Apple provides their apps for other platforms, then there are lots of people in the world who simply can't afford Apple devices. There are many countries where Android is king because it's cheap and widely available. So we need to recognize that. The Maps app, that got quite an upgrade. The thing that we picked out was cycling instructions or directions specific to cycling.
Yeah, absolutely. Could be really useful in the big cities where it's going to be particularly rolled out. Just a really useful additional feature.
Yeah, when we were chatting about this earlier, you mentioned the sort of delivery riders. Although I suspect they probably know where they're going, don't they?
I would imagine most of the time. But even in a big city like London, if you get an address that you don't know, I know you would have the knowledge in a lot of cases, as they call it. But if you're new to the gig economy, or if it's just somewhere a bit obscure, I could see that being really useful.
Okay, so that's a good thing. Digital car keys. That was... I don't think I saw that coming. So we've got a car key on your phone. Use your phone to enter the car by using NFC to tap your phone against the car. And I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I guess that's the way everything's going, though, isn't it? I mean, you've already got your airport tickets, your payment cards on your phone. There are many times now I go out without a wallet, and it's not like, what am I going to do? Because I know I've got a means to pay and I've got pretty much everything else on there. So it just thought of something. You're never going to scratch your phone screen with your car keys again, are you?
No, you'll scratch the phone on the car itself instead.
You scratch your car.
Do you know what I took out of that, Pete, is that you can't ever go out anywhere and say, I've forgotten my wallet anymore. And that's good for me. So let's move on. Of course, we almost missed it. You can text your key to someone else if you want to do that.
Which I could see being useful.
Yeah, could be useful.
But how many times have you sent a text to the wrong person?
I guess they've got to come and find your car though as well.
Yeah, Yeah.
Unless it's someone you know, and then in which case, choose better friends. Integration of third-party VoIP systems into Apple's phone.
Yeah.
I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, so things like Skype, I'm guessing, although they didn't mention it explicitly, that will include things like Microsoft Teams and Zoom. And while the current iPhone and iPad do integrate those loosely, this seemed to be a much tighter integration. So you could essentially, treat Skype or Teams as just another phone call method. And I think in the world we're living in now, particularly with the lockdown that we've globally experienced and everything going online, working from home, that's really good timing, whether it was by accident or by design. But having a more unified way of communicating through a device seems really good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking forward to that. The Apple Pencil, Scribble. So this is being able to use your Apple Pencil to handwrite in text fields on your iPad, and also being able to copy and paste text that you've handwritten in multiple languages. What do you think, Pete?
Well, if it works anywhere near how they said and demonstrated in the keynote, I think that's a game changer. It is the gold standard that we've been looking for, is that handwriting recognition ever since the Palm Pilot or the Palm Pre, was it? So to be able to have something that could do that would make the whole experience of you using your Apple Pencil on your iPad seamless. I think that would be a really amazing thing. But again, we'll have to wait and see how it's actually implemented. The demo looked good, though.
It did. I can't help but wonder, actually, with all of the various announcements that we've had today, whether we'll finally see some kind of hybrid iPad notebook, a touchscreen Mac with pencil support. I wonder. Apple have been resisting it for a long time, but who knows?
Well, kind of like the equivalent of a Microsoft Surface.
Kind of like a Microsoft Surface. Apple do like to reinvent things that other people have already invented. So let's not forget that. We had the Apple Watch, and of course this was what you were interested in looking at, Pete. So more types of exercise being tracked in there, and a new health app that rather than just being an aggregator of third-party health apps, this is a distinct Apple-branded health centre. How do you feel about it?
Well, very light on detail on that. I felt a bit underwhelmed by the WatchOS announcements, if I'm honest. And I think that kind of just reinforces what we were saying earlier about there's only so far you can go with a fitness watch of any kind. And I think most of those features are already there. So adding new exercise types for when you're, I think in this case, dancing is what they mentioned, is great. That's really useful because it's going to enable you to track that activity more accurately to what you're actually doing, which is definitely useful. But is it a game changer? No. There wasn't anything that looked particularly keyed up for new hardware, any game changer in hardware announcements, which we'll expect in September. So with the health app, we'll just have to wait and see. If they manage to pull together the nutrition apps that you can get, like MyFitnessPal, running, walking apps, training apps, swimming apps, and just put them all together and do them really well, that could be amazing. But we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. And when that new Apple Watch comes out later this year, we'll grab one of those, because I'd like to review it anyway for my channel. And Pete, you've just recently started a YouTube channel.
I have.
Just tell us about that.
It's called Not Another Diet, and it's basically me recording my experiences in getting fit, losing weight, and just the challenges I've found with that, and sort of secrets I found along the way that have helped me with that. So I do a bit of tech review on that, but lots of other things as well. And be keen to see if the new Apple Watch we're expecting in September gives us anything new and game changing.
Excellent. So you'll obviously feature it on your channel, and we'll put a link in the description for Pete's channel. So please have a click on that. Go and have a look at Pete's content. He's put up quite a lot of videos already. Please subscribe, help him out, get his channel started. Lots of entertaining stuff to come. HomeKit was the next thing, and both Pete and I don't really use HomeKit, so there isn't anything particularly that we've got to offer on that subject, other than we really like the idea of facial recognition at the doorbell. I don't know why I like that. That's kind of like a Orwellian future. It's quite scary, isn't it? But actually useful.
It is. I think in this world we live in today, knowing who's at your door, particularly, I was thinking of vulnerable adults, be they elderly or vulnerable for other reasons, being able to know who's at your door and eliminate that anxiety that can cause, particularly if you're in a neighbourhood where there is cause for concern. That's a brilliant thing, and I think it will put a lot of people's minds at ease to a degree.
Interesting. Well, we'll see what happens with that. Perhaps I will get into HomeKit. The big barrier for me is all of these subscription models. It's not the money; it's just the fact that all of these different things, they just add up, don't they? You end up with so many different subscriptions going out. I don't want to subscribe to someone for my doorbell. At the end of the day,
I'm with you there.
I'd rather spend my money on other things. So we get to the big thing. Actually, no. Before we get to the big thing, Pro XDR displays. Lots of those on show today in the keynote.
There were a lot of them, almost suspiciously a lot of them. What did you take from that, Dave? You did have a theory.
I was wondering whether actually are they new iMacs? Are these the new ARM-based iMacs or something? And there was going to be some great reveal, but yeah.
We were sorely disappointed.
That XDR display. Apple has always made expensive displays. I remember years ago buying the cinema displays when they first came out. Bought one of those. That was expensive enough. But the Pro XDR is on another level entirely, and there are some interesting reviews of the Pro XDR on YouTube. I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but I think it's safe to say it's not worth the price of entry, and you can save yourself a lot of money. But if you like the design, I always say if you like something and it's what you want to spend your money on, you go for it. Absolutely.
The case is amazing, and as a piece of tech artwork in your house, if you can afford it, then it's a lovely thing. But if you're kidding yourself that it's going to give you some sumptuous display that you can't get for a lot lower price point, then you're kidding yourself, I think.
Yeah, so true. Okay, so let's move on to macOS. The new macOS will be called Big Sur, so another reference to a location in California. I don't know how well that one's going to travel around the world, but there we go. That's what it's called, Big Sur. Lots of new features. They are refreshed to the user interface, new design language, just refined. Really looks nice. I think we discussed this earlier. We're quite happy to see a refresh. Lots of improvements though to Safari. That was the thing they really focused in on.
Yeah.
And it seemed like to me that they were focusing in on personalization and stopping tracking cookies.
Yeah, which is a bit of a concern for the line of work we do, really.
Yeah, there's sort of been this, I want to say movement. It's not a movement, but this kind of momentum has been gathering of people feeling like tracking cookies are an invasion of privacy. But in most cases, of course, no personal data is ever shared through these cookies. But what they do is they really refine the experience. So your web experience is refined with the use of these cookies. And sometimes we do get irritated by them when we see tracking, and you're getting lots of adverts coming up for websites you visited, and that might be a little bit irritating. But they're very, very helpful to businesses who are looking to improve their website. When they can see how you interact with their website, they can then make improvements to it. So I think blocking the cookies will slow down the improvement of user interface and UX design. I think it will also present difficulties for smaller businesses trying to trade online who, they don't have the deep pockets of Amazon and Google and Apple. They can't just collect everyone's data. If you switch off the tracking cookie, they're going to struggle.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult to market, and these things do make a big difference, don't they, for our customers?
Absolutely, and functionally as well. It could impair the usability of the website beyond improvement. It could just stop things working properly, and that's going to cause frustration to the users. So I think, as you say, there's been this momentum around cookies being evil, and actually cookies are like any tool. They can be used for evil or for nefarious purposes, but by and large, they're used just to improve things. And if you're going to a website, let's say you're going to an e-commerce site to buy a product, well, do you want that website to be built in such a way that makes it easy for you to find and buy what you're looking for? Or do you want it to actually hinder that? Well, most of the time, the cookies, certainly that we use in our business for our customers, are the former. They're there to improve the user experience, not to hinder it and not to nefariously track people.
Apple are finally transitioning Mac to ARM CPUs. There we go. Got me words out eventually. And no real surprises at all here. Everyone knew it was coming, particularly with the speed of Apple's silicon. They're making their own chips. Their ARM chips are better than any chips that anyone else is making, as far as I'm aware. They're fantastic. These devices, the iPad, iPhone, they're fast, they're powerful. So this is a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. I don't really know what to say. I was absolutely flabbergasted with the demos we saw. The fact that they've got the big hitters there, they've got Microsoft, the Office environment, they've got Adobe, and their own pro apps. I mean, let's talk about Final Cut Pro. Whoa.
So yeah, I use Final Cut, and I too was, I was blown away, and I heard Peter over in the corner squealing a little squeal of delight as well. They had a timeline playing a 4K piece of footage, and then they were applying effects and filters to it in real time.
In real time, yeah. That doesn't compute for me.
No, and they were doing that on the A12Z or Z Bionic, yeah. The thing that's in the latest iPad Pro. Obviously, they've attached more RAM to it, but it's just incredible, isn't it?
It is. And did you notice they put 3 4K streams on it in real time? That's a game changer for editors, your productivity, your workflow. If you can do things like that, you're not waiting for renders, background or otherwise. It's just amazing. And we said earlier we were concerned that Apple may be moving towards more of a consumer focus, and that they might leave their pro users behind. And we've always been worried about that in recent times, certainly. But I think this has kind of absolutely restored my confidence that they are completely behind the pro users of their equipment, because that is one of the biggest areas. Let's face it, a consumer, they might be able to play a game a little bit quicker, or they might be able to watch a video a little bit quicker. But in reality, those things are limited by other things. The people that are really going to benefit first from this new silicon are pro users, and that for me is really exciting to see that happening.
So let's say you're a pro user, Pete. You just dropped, I don't know, £8,000 perhaps on the new 2019 Mac Pro. Perhaps you've splurged for the Pro XDR display as well to go with it.
Yeah.
How are you feeling right now?
Wish I bought a Ford Fiesta instead, because that's kind of the price you're talking about, isn't it? That is the problem. Is that you've essentially, what Apple have done is they've made every Intel, even though they said they're going to be supporting Intel for years to come, in your head you're going to be thinking, yeah, but do I really want an Intel now?
You see, if I was in that position where I was looking at dropping that kind of money on a 2019 Mac Pro, if I was going to invest in a Mac Pro, I'd need that to last me for sort of 6 years. It would have to be my workhorse for 6 years to pay back that investment. Will Apple be supporting Intel stuff for 6 years? And if Apple are supporting it for 6 years, will the other software providers be supporting it for that long?
Well, I can't see it. I mean, they said a 2-year transition period, didn't they? So you've got to think that they're going to do at least another 2 years after that of formal support for Intel, and then probably another 2 years after that. But what you're going to see is things gradually just degrade to the point, and we saw it when the Power PC was replaced, the architecture there, that gradually you just get to the point where everything that you need to run your Mac just suddenly stops working. You're in this dead end alley that you have to upgrade.
And so Apple are trying to mitigate against this with some of the tools that they're providing. And it's the same as when we transitioned from PowerPC to Intel. So they've got something called a universal binary. So this is where you can develop your code in Xcode or your development suite, and then when you compile it, you end up with a compiled code for both different architectures. So you'd have one that was for ARM and one for Intel, or x86, I should say. Then they've also got, paired with that, something called Rosetta. So we've basically got Universal 2 and Rosetta 2 now to help us with this transition. With Rosetta 2, what they were saying is that this actually translates the apps at the time of installation, which I think is interesting. I'm not sure I follow that that's going to happen 100% of the time. They also showed us some virtualization and emulation, so I'd imagine that might be included somewhere.
Yeah, I would think that it probably does some of it, maybe a base of it, but there's going to have to be some stuff done in real time, one would think.
Yeah, who knows? Just purely guessing at this point, but obviously Apple have gone out and got the heavy hitters in early so that they can get on with making their apps available. And certainly they seem to be providing all of the toolkit, so if all of that works and developers embrace it and they are using Apple's development environment, then the code will work fine. Of course, there are some apps that are not developed within Apple's environment, so we'll have to wait and see how that works. Now, we were waiting for the product announcement, the new iMac, and I was so disappointed. It fell really flat at the end. I thought they were building us up to this massive announcement of some product. Tim Cook did say that they would have consumer computers with ARM CPUs before the end of the year. He did say that. I didn't dream it up. So they know it's coming. It's a shame they didn't show it to us and do a teaser, even if we couldn't buy it yet. And what we get instead is this kind of like Frankenstein's monster, which is a Mac Mini with an A12 chucked in it, which is available to developers. And of course, we're an Apple developer, so perhaps we can apply for one. We are
indeed. Well, if I can get that Final Cut Pro performance out of it, I might be tempted.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think that Apple are shipping these out for free to their developers out of the goodness of their heart in order to enrich their app ecosystem.
It is still a Mac Mini, though, with an iPad chip stuffed in it.
Yeah. Amazing. And then, I'm not sure what to make of this. Tim Cook said, new Intel Macs in the pipeline, that he's very excited about, but didn't announce. Now, I just want to say, before we get into this, Apple have been quietly releasing new stuff without using keynotes. So, I think we mentioned this at the outset, but we had the MacBook Pro 13 that's just been released. Prior to that was the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro 16-inch. In fact, they've just done a little upgrade on the MacBook Pro 16-inch. They've made the 5600M graphics card available. It's a very expensive upgrade, but it's available if you want it. And imagine performance is pretty good. They've also, made more graphics cards offerings available for that big Mac Pro. So they are sort of, bringing out new products. So my expectation is that these new Intel Macs will just quietly appear on the website without too much song and dance about them.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it as we've been listening to this, because we've just talked about the fact that if someone like you or I were to look to invest now, would we go for a Mac Pro at this point, knowing what's coming? And the answer is probably no. But how many of your average consumers out there will realise the ramifications of this, or even care? Because they're probably not looking at it in the same way as we do. So as long as the apps work, as long as it's shiny, it's a well-built thing, a lot of people will not stop to think about that. So if there are new Intel Macs on the way and they look amazing and they perform well, I suspect Apple will still get lots of buyers for them, because a lot of the consumer segment will be quite happy to part with their cash.
I can see that being the case. I can see professional users moving to Windows. I can see that this could be the final straw for some people, particularly those who, with the new Mac Pro being so expensive, it was a real jump up in price. So as a result of that, a lot of people are buying the 2013 Mac Pro, for example, or upgrading the previous one, the cheese grater. You've only got to look at my channel. I've posted a lot of videos on that, and people are really interested. In fact, the prices of those machines are going up. And it's all because people can't afford the price of entry. I mean, the Mac Pro isn't for the pros like us. it's people on a really sort of different level of computing, I think. But suppose you're in that boat where you've kind of your computer's a bit out of date. The Mac Pro is just a bit too expensive, so you're in a position where you're saving up for the Mac Pro, and you've finally come to terms with that, and then Apple pulls the rug from under your feet and says, "Oh, by the way, yeah, that's all going. We're going to have ARM CPUs in everything."
You'd be absolutely gutted if you bought one yesterday.
And unless, I mean, a lot of people, of course, perhaps they're just banking on the fact that Pro users will have factored in obsolescence and total cost of ownership, because that's what we do when we buy kit for the business.
That's true.
You know, how much does it cost? How long are we going to use it for? What will we get back at the end? But of course, what they've done with this announcement, I suspect, is really hurt the resale values of the Mac Pro. Now, if somebody had come to me yesterday and said, 2019 Mac Pro, that's really expensive, then I would say, yes, it is. The price of entry is high, but the quality is there. And what will happen as a result of that is that when you come to sell it after 6 years, you'll get more for it. In fact, how often do we see this? When we dispose of our Apple gear after 3 years, we typically get 40% back, I think, 50% sometimes.
And we can't give away the Windows gear, which is often a lot newer.
Yeah. So I actually factor that into, when I do my calculations of what we can afford to buy for the business, I actually factor in the resale value in the future and the total cost of ownership. So if you're looking at a 2019 Mac Pro and it costs, let's say you buy the base model, which I think is $5,500, right? What's it worth in 6 years' time? Probably 2,000.
Yeah, that's a fair. Well, yesterday.
Today, what's it worth? It's basically, people, I suppose, will buy them to run Windows on.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, it is game changing, and we'll have to. I'd be interested once you've had time to percolate your thoughts, and I've had time to percolate my thoughts on where we think this will leave people.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher, that's for sure. So it's great news. I think it's great news that Apple are moving over to ARM. I think moving the entire Mac range over to ARM is quite a surprise. I suppose it's inevitable. It's such a big change. I do think there are some issues, but I'm sure we'll find a way of resolving that. I'm sure Apple will find a way of resolving it, but I'm also sure that Apple's resolution will result in them getting more money at the end of the day and becoming even more wealthy. So that's it from the keynote. Interesting keynote. Expecting certain product launches that just didn't happen. I think we thought we might see more on the Watch OS, which we didn't really get. And to be honest, a lot of this functionality is not new stuff. You know, it's not stuff that we've never seen before. It's just Apple redoing things that already exist. And there's a few exceptions, obviously, in that list. So what are your thoughts? Leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you think about this transition to ARM, especially if you're one of those people that's just bought a new Apple computer, particularly if it was a very expensive one. I'd like to know what you think about it. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe. There's plenty of Mac-based content coming on my channel, and hopefully we did enough to earn a thumbs up. Just want to say thanks, Pete, for joining me.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to visit Pete's channel, link in the description below. The video that Pete just released on the Gymshark sale. It's only a short one and it's quite funny. I think you should check that out. Also, thanks to Peter over there in the corner. Pete's over there driving the live switcher today, and maybe next time we'll be able to bring you this event or commentate on particular events live. And again, if that's something you'd like to see, let us know in the comments. And that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time for some more geekery.